Well, good day. This is retired Fire Chief Paul Smith, and today we're going to talk about fire department grading and how fire departments got graded and why we get graded and what the history behind that is, and how fire departments were rated as far as their efficiency and readiness to respond to fires. And so my guest today is retired Fire Chief Bob Marcucci. And welcome to Marin Fire History, Bob.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So today you and I are going to chat a little bit about the history of fire department grading, how it affects our agencies here in Marin. But first, why don't we talk a little bit about how that got started back in the 1800s?
Well, back in the 1800s, there were severe fires in many of the urban cities, which caused some of the small insurance companies difficulty because they couldn't pay the claims, and larger insurance companies had to come in and give them a loan. At the same time, there was no standard for determining the premiums for insurance, and there was no standard in fire departments. Each fire department basically had their own size hose and own size threads. So in mutual aid, it was difficulty hooking to the hydrants and the hose. In 1866, there were two fires, one in Portland, Maine, and the other in Baltimore, which caused a group of insurance underwriters to say, enough is enough. We have to come up with some standards, not only for fire department, but standards for insuring cities and how we determine the premiums. So they came up with the grading schedule, the national grading schedule for towns and cities in the United States relative to fire defense. And that became the National Board of Fire Underwriters.
Okay. And the National Board of Fire Underwriters was formed by the insurance companies. And you're absolutely right. We took a look, our last show, we did a piece on the Sanborn fire maps, and that was another way the insurance companies could get their heads around determining risk for fire loss. So if we could take a little bit of look at the National Board of Fire Underwriters, and we can bring up the next slide on what that was.
Well, the National Board of Fire Underwriters established classes 1 through 10, 1 superior fire protection and 10 being minimum fire protection, no fire protection. And the underwriters from the National Board of Fire Underwriters encourage insurance companies to use that standard in determining their premiums. So fire departments then had to look at those standards and come up with solutions to increase their competency on fires.
Sure, and I bet there was some buy-in from the communities the fire agency served, because if the fire agency was up to snuff, according to the insurance company, that would reduce the risk to the insurance company and therefore reduce the premiums to the business owners in the town that were seeking fire insurance.
Fire protection in municipalities is the only agency where if you improve your service level, you get a reduction, and that reduction is in the premium on your insurance. So you can increase your police department or public works, you get no benefit from it. Increasing fire protection, the benefit is a lower cost for insurance through the premium.
Sure. And one of their standards that the National Board of Fire Underwriters required that they didn't have before was they wanted qualified stokers to operate their steamers, and that's right in the standards in this book here. Is from 1930, these standards. So back in 1930, Bob, which was almost 100 years ago, there were still steamer fire engines, and there were still horse-drawn fire engines. It was near the end of the horse-drawn era, but the National Board of Fire Underwriters wanted qualified teamsters um, for the horse-drawn apparatus and qualified stokers for the old steam pumpers. So uh, rather than having somebody in the agency, they had to be trained to a certain level, and that's one of the things that we keep with our standards today: the training of the fire personnel.
Well, when you look at the grading schedule, the fire department is 50 points. So that tells us that training, the type of equipment that you have, your ability to control fires is extremely important.
Sure, absolutely. And we see one of those items is a water supply. And looking back at Marin County, uh, 30, 40 years ago, our water supply was not, how should I say this, ideal. The spacing of the fire hydrants and the capacity of the mains to supply the water was not needed to be upgraded, shall we say. So I remember you were a fire chief at the time. Um, we worked with the Marin Municipal Water District and um, went to the voters to obtain additional funding because that was one of the factors, water supply, that we needed to address.
The water district, municipal water district, for years indicated that their mains were only for daily consumption and not for fire protection. And you're absolutely right, Paul. The fire chief said enough is enough of this. They went with Hal Brown, some other politicians, and went out on the ballot and got approved a fire flow fee that each resident pays to improve the water mains. I believe that the Fire Chiefs Association basically is subsidizing the water district because to replace a lot of those mains that they should have replaced, they're now using fire flow funds to do that. So the fire chiefs did a marvelous job and are to be complimented because I don't know of another jurisdiction that pays in for fire flow and fire hydrants.
Sure. And to your previous comment, Bob, this is one of the ways, the only way, that increasing our water supply, increasing our score, our grade, actually has a direct benefit to our citizens, as you
Well,
mentioned before.
when you look at the grading schedule, 50 points are for fire, 40 for water.
Right.
And the fire flow fund also increased the distance between fire hydrants. And so it was a major benefit for the community. And again, it helped many departments lower their premiums or increase their class from maybe 4 to 3
Sure.
because of the water mains.
Sure. Sure. So brings us to if you will, the modern era when you and I were working. 1970s, the National Board of Fire Underwriters transitioned to the ISO, or the Insurance Services Office, and that is the standards that cities and towns meet today to get their grades.
Yeah, in 19, I think it was 71, the National Board of Fire Underwriters transitioned to the Insurance Service Office. They did the same thing as the National Board of Fire Underwriters,
Mhm.
but the transition was at the bequest of, I think, insurance underwriters who wanted to have more say in the rating process and how that took place.
Sure. And more recently, in the last, about 15 years, the ISO adjusted their rating schedule for fire department grading to include points for
Risk reduction.
risk reduction, including fire prevention,
Right.
and including community preparedness. So those are two pieces that I know our fire departments, they spend a lot of time and a lot of money with codes and ordinances and a fire prevention program that previously in the 1990s the agencies weren't getting credit, if you will, credit for. So with that extra 5.5 points that are available to the fire agency, it can actually bring its score up, significantly to the next grade, thereby reducing the premiums to the
That
business
was
owners and the homeowners.
that was something that the fire departments were putting a lot of effort into.
Yeah.
But the insurance company didn't recognize it until, as you said, later on. And today it's worth 5.5 points and is very important in looking at your community and determining what the risk factors are.
Sure, absolutely. Now, today, probably since about 2019, California has had some significant urban wildland interface events, and a lot of insurance companies have reassessed their risk in California, which brings us today to, in Marin County, we have the Marin Wildfire Prevention Group, which is doing door-to-door fire risk assessment based mostly on a wildland interface fire, hardening of your homes, proper defensible space, et cetera, et cetera. I think history repeats itself, I think, Bob. We're looking back in the 1880s this morning where fire departments are doing the best they can, but the fire insurance companies are taking tremendous hits in California in the last 10 years. So I think we're at a juncture here looking forward on how are we going to best protect our neighborhoods and our communities, and at the same time give the firefighters a chance of saving some homes and somehow being able to rope in the insurance company premiums that have really increased in California in the last several years. So that's kind of our thoughts for today.
I think what's happening is that the fingers are pointing at the fire departments from the community, saying, based on all these fires that have occurred and the catastrophic effect of them, what are you doing to protect me? And so I think fire departments, at least in Marin County, have stepped up and are doing that. And the citizens ought to be complimented, or the fire departments ought to be complimented for the good work that they're doing to keep those premiums down.
Sure. And I think as we go forward, I know Marin County was a leader in this, probably starting 5 years ago with the formation of the Marin Wildfire Prevention Agency. That being said, we have a ways to go, but I'm confident we can get there.
Oh, I'm sure we're going to get there. I think the dedication that's here in this community, you read the local newspaper and there's always an article about wildland fire control and what's going on. So it's at the top of everybody's list of things that they want to see done.
Absolutely. So here at Marin Fire History, we kind of painted with a broad brush this morning, tied in the history of how fire departments graded or have been graded through the years, and what we're doing today to increase and better the protection of our community. So, Bob, thanks for joining me today, and thanks to everybody for tuning in to Marin Fire History. And we have some more of this on our website, marinfirehistory.org, if you're interested in the Sanborn maps and how in Marin County fire history. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.